Welcome to today's event, Empowering Positive Male Role Models. So you are here because you want to be a part of a movement that empowers that male presence in a positive way, right? I've been reflecting on what does it mean to be that positive male role model. And I realized that it begins with the joining at conception, right? Of the mother and the father. So that's how you come into being. And then you have the choice in your life to choose to surround yourself with people, places, and circumstances where you can flourish and grow in a positive way. So really, being a positive male role model is all about how you feel about yourself and how you treat other people. And when you can get those two things in alignment, then positive things will happen in your life in all the different areas. Do you guys agree? I hope so, because this is the space today in this community that's sponsored by the Men's Room community, where we are creating that community. We are creating that space and place for all of you to have opportunities to flourish. So whether you are seeking a mentor, as someone that wants to be a mentee, whether you are wanting to come for fellowship, whether you are here because you would like to figure out ways that you can take a habit that you want to change and transform from maybe an unhealthy one to a healthy one. There's all of these different things that can happen in this space. And I am pleased and honored that we have someone here today that is going to take us on a grounding journey through breathing. And I'm going to turn this over to Brian Muka.
Hi, guys. It's an honor to be in the circle with you. Pierce, looking forward to guiding you through just a quick little 5-minute tune-up. First part of this, with your permission, if I change my posture and I change my energetic state, thank you, Tony Robbins, the ideas are better. And I can take in more. You guys good with that? Number two, Tony Robbins' secret weapon is Donnie Epstein. So if I change the energetic state, I increase the probability of having epiphanies. And then the third thing we can do today, after studying breath for the last 6 years, 2,200 days in a row, the most important part I found about breathing is the heart. So my journey as a special operations guy and the work that I do with our veterans, that's the longest journey from here to here. And so that's a little heart math with Bruce Cryer. Plus, I'm going to throw in a little treat at the end with some quantum sound tuning that I've invented. So step one, I invite you to roll your shoulders back and open up your chest. If there's tightness in the chest, we're experiencing poverty and fear. So that's valor, courage, plus an open heart, right? So that's step one. Step two, I want to pull up in the back of my brainstem here, changes the back posture. And then I want to balance my head there. Can you already hear it changing in my voice? I'm just balancing my skull on top of my atlas and ulna. Should take zero muscle to do that. I can feel some of you guys got that already. Just give me a smile when you start to feel a little different. Good to go. Awesome. So that's 15 seconds right there. Ever feeling funky? It's a great place to go. The next part of this is as we're in that energetic state. If you want more volume, raise your hands. If you want less, you can always cover up your heart. And let's all do that just for 1 second. Hands above your head, like the YMCA. What that does is it sheds all of the negative energy from carrier waves, like 5G, that type of stuff. Ever feeling funky? Just let this shower off any of the negativity. Cool. This is also good for dopamine and confidence. There's that. Cool. So if this feels comfortable for you, take a breath in however you want. Nose, mouth, doesn't matter. However your body wants to breathe in this moment. Take a breath in and sigh it out. And one more breath. Sigh it out. This time pause in the bottom and feel your heart beating. One more. This time count 5 heartbeats. When I'm still enough to hear my heart beating, I can also hear the word of God or my divine self. Fill in the word, phrase of your choosing. Whatever words I use there aren't big enough. And one more breath in. And let go. Now just imagine breathing this breath into your skull. And imagine the breath filling up this rotunda, this sunroom. And on the other side of the glass, it's the most beautiful scene that you've ever seen. Could be the beach, could be the desert, whatever it is that you love. And just notice any tension in your body. And with this next breath, let go of that tension. Beautiful. Now I want you to take a hand and put it in the very center of your heart, wherever you think that is for you. Imagine there's a nose right in the center of your heart. Breathe deeply into the heart, fill up the chest. Now let it go. One more. And for the rest of our time together, I invite you to find a moment of love, joy, and gratitude. For me, it's Christmas Eve at my parents' house. I can hear the crackling fire. I can smell the food. I can hear the laughter and the music. Make it vivid as if you're there. Your 50 trillion cells don't know the difference between what you're seeing on the inside versus what the eyes open can see. And if you feel called to start flowing with the energy, if you want to sing along, by all means. And I'm just going to send some cymatic sound tuning. Let the sound tune your body and take a little bit of extra energy for yourself. In the silence that we're enjoying right now, that great feeling that you have, the secret is the more I can send this invisible energy to the people that I love, my future clients, the more I send it, the more I get to receive. So just take a moment, maybe open your eyes, send this love to the men and lady in the room. And then if you feel so called, start to send that out into the earth. The thank you, thank you, thank you. And maybe one more deep breath. Sigh it out. And just pause for 5. And when you're when your diaphragm says it's time to breathe, start breathing. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Brian, for taking us through that. I don't know about everyone else, but I'm in a place of calm. And as we go into today, being in that calm, grounded state is important. And there's so many things that are going to go on for us today. And I've got Aaron Stone and AK who are going to take us through the next phase. And they are going to be speaking to what it's like to be that positive male role model. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to those two gentlemen.
All right. Good morning, afternoon, evening, or wherever you might be at this time. My name is Aaron Stone. I'll be starting off this little talk along with AK, who's finishing up the second half. I know we're talking about positive role models and mentors in our life, but as AK and I first discussed, we were looking at, okay, it's easy to find someone who has, a positive impact on our life, someone who that we can look up to, a mentor that provides guidance, who is there for us at all times, whether professionally or personally. But as we discussed this and what we're going to talk about over the last couple of weeks, we started thinking about those that have sadly a negative impact on our life. I mean, it's true that yes, we learn the best from those that have that positive impact, those that want to teach us, those that want to be there for us. But what about those that had a negative impact on our life? Those that simply didn't care if we were there or not. And that's kind of what I'm going to go through for the next 15 minutes with you with that is that those that, although they didn't know it, but they inadvertently had an impact on our life. And I'm going to start off with my father, actually. Um, for those who don't know, my name is Aaron Stone, as I said, and I speak on male sexual assault. Basically, I travel the world and tell my story of being sexually assaulted, or as I like to say, raped, from a male teacher when I was a teenager, when I was 15 years old. And I always start that story off with my family dynamic. Basically, of course, we all come from a mother and a father. But in my particular case, in the 80s, as was sadly many children in the 80s, their parents, divorced. There was high impact divorce in the 80s, probably around 50 to 55%. And my parents were no different. When I was 5 years old, my father left. I was five. My sister was three. My mother was alone with the three of us because my brother was 1 years old. So basically, she was dealing with three kids who were under 5 years old. We never heard from them again. Never received any type of assistance, financial or otherwise. But thankfully, just down the street, her parents, my maternal grandparents, lived there. So they took me in to help alleviate some of the burden off my mom. So my grandfather became my father. But when I tell my story, I always tell how my father, even though I have not seen him since the mid 1980s, he became one of my greatest teachers because he taught me what not to do as a human being and definitely what not to do as a father. Um, and sometimes we look back at those that had a negative impact on our life and realize, you know what? Even though they didn't teach me what to do, they basically taught me what not to do as a person. Because as we're looking at a mentor, of course, we're looking at those that are, they provide us with the tools, the support, the guidance, the feedback that we need to thrive in our career and sometimes in our personal lives also. They can be a friend, they can be, a family member, they can be somebody that's from our school or from our line of work. Or as for me, I retired from the Army a couple years ago after 27 years. So I've had definitely my share of great leaders, of good leaders, and definitely of bad leaders that taught me what not to do when it comes to ensuring that those under my charge are taken care of. And so what I want to speak about tonight is about those that we look at and say, you know what? I don't like that person, basically. They had a negative impact on my life. They didn't do anything for me. They left me in the dust. They simply didn't care. But we take those traits that we learn from them and realize, you know what? That's not the person I want to be. I want to be someone better. I don't want to be down at their level. And basically, I want to rise above what they were because, as we know, not all people in this world are great human beings. Sadly, some people just are selfish. They want to take care of themselves only and their needs and their wants and they will climb on or step on whoever they need to ensure they get to their own goals without the worry or the care of helping anyone else. And so, as we all know, a great mentor, of course, is not only one who's been there, who's done that, as we like to say, but also one who wants to help the next generation get there. Um, when I finished the military a couple years ago, one of my last jobs was teaching at the Sergeant's Major Academy at Fort Bliss here in El Paso, Texas. And what I always like to say is we as leaders, our sole purpose is not only ensuring that our organization, our unit, is the best that it can be, that we are building the best soldiers and the best product that we can put out, but it's training our replacements. Basically, it's ensuring that, those that are under us are prepared to take our place, because that's the whole purpose of leadership, is ensuring that someday that our slot will be fulfilled by someone who is capable, who is intelligent, who knows that, leadership is a privilege. It's not a right. It's not about having a parking space. It's not about having that fancy office. It's about being able to be in service of others. And one of the funny things I always found is as when I became a senior leader in the enlisted ranks as a first sergeant, as a command sergeant major, that we were always given, for example, our own parking spot. And I always found that kind of odd. It's like, well, there's this whole big parking lot, and yet you're giving me my own specific slot with this sign. And I always took the sign, took it out of the ground, and literally put it in the locker or in my office during my tenure, so that, when someone wanted to show up a little earlier to me in park, that was fine because I simply didn't care. It just wasn't my thing. But sadly, we have those that rise in the ranks, that rise in a position of leadership, that rise in a position where they should be a positive mentor to say, you know what? I want the big office. I want the parking space. I want a driver who will take me around and who is at my beck and call. And that's not what it's about. It's about serving those uh, that are in your organization as those that have served you as you were coming up. And so, as I mentioned, of course, we always learn the good and the bad from those that have a negative impact in our life and those that have a positive. And I mentioned my father, and of course, in my story, when I speak further, I talk about the man. He was a middle school teacher who had been teaching at the local middle school in the hometown where I grew up, or for over three decades at that part, so for 30 years. And um, he, for lack of a better term, raped me. And in the eyes of our hometown, he was the local hero. He was the one that was the standout. He was a pillar of the community. Not only was he teaching the current students at that time, but he taught most of their parents too. So everyone knew him. And of course, when this story came out, it was sensationalized to the fact that, I was being victim blamed, because it's like, well, how can this pillar community, how can this teacher, how can this educator be the one to lay his hands on this person? I don't believe that he did this. It was this 14, 15-year-old kid who's making up a story simply to slander his name. When we all know, sadly, that when it comes to sexual abuse, assault, and rape, that it's not from stranger danger, it's not from those that we know, but 95% of those attacks are those from that we do know, from those that are teachers, from those that are in uniform, from those that wear the collar, from those that wear the badge, because they use their positional power like that. And of course, that taught me obviously what not to do as a human being. Is like, well, how can you think that laying your hands on this child and pretty much committing the most atrocious crime that you can do to this little boy, think that this is going to be good in his life, think that it's going to be a positive impact on his life, to think that, maybe he'll come out better or more resilient because of this. And it's funny that I mentioned that, because yes, I mean, even though it took me over 17 years, I did become finally more resilient after self-education, after realizing, life is going to go on. I can't live in this hole anymore of shame. I can't live in this hole of being scared of what those in power may or may not do to me. So I finally stepped up and said, you know what? I refuse to let them hold this power over me, even though I had not seen him in so long, and realize, I can be the one to step out and say, I'm going to be the one that says it's okay to speak up. I'm going to be the one that says it's okay to say something, to speak out against your perpetrator because this isn't right. We should not, just because of our gender, just because of where we were raised, be taught that we should not show emotion. Be taught that if another man lays his hands on you, that we should keep it down inside because if we can't take care of ourselves, then how can we take care of our spouses, of our children, of those under our charge? And it took me almost 2 decades, but I finally realized that this is not a way to live a life. We should not live a life in shame. We should not live a life cowering under rocks simply because someone did this deed to us. And I hope that when I go out and speak, that others realize, and of course, I've received countless messages and emails afterwards saying that just because of you, I've been able to speak out. Just because of you, I've been able to stand up against my perpetrator. But we have to also learn that not only those of us that are trying to serve, that are trying to do good in this world, there are also the opposite, the 360, or I'm sorry, the 180, who are just simply want to watch the world burn. And we have to realize that, yes, we can learn not only from those that want to do good in our lives, but also those that hurt us, those that push us down, those that hold us by the throat, those that hold us under their thumb, that we can learn from them also, because we learn what not to do in a society in which sometimes it seems like everyone wants to simply live for themselves or take care of their own. But we all have to realize that we're all on this floating rock together. We're all on the same journey to the grave. Sadly, we're the only species that knows that the end is coming, and because of that, we can choose to be good or bad. But practicing stoicism over the last couple of years, there's a Latin phrase that has stuck with me for so long. And basically, it's memento mori. It's like we're all going to die. And yes, even though it may seem morbid, but it's simply a fact. It's just going to happen to every single one of us, whether the next hour, tomorrow, next week, or in 20 years. It's going to happen to every single one of us. And what are we going to do to ensure that our slice of the pie in this world is better when we leave than how we came into it? Yes, most of us, theoretically, most of us, honestly, are not going to change the world, but we're going to change this person's lives. We're going to change this other person's lives, who in turn is going to send a ripple across their life, across the world, simply because of the good deeds that we did, simply because of the service that we provided. And that's what it's about. It's simply giving that good service, simply providing that mentorship to one person at a time. And in turn, they will pass it on to another. And that is our legacy. That is all we can ask for, is that even though we may be forgotten in 50 and 100 years, but we know in that lineage of that service that we have passed on, that we have made a difference, not only in this person's life, but inadvertently in someone else's, and someone else's, and so on. And so that ripple spreads out. And it's a good feeling to know that we are in the middle of that ripple, ensuring that our slice of the pie is being taken care of, that our piece of the world is going to be a little bit better simply because we were in it. I'm going to go ahead and pass this to AK.
Right. Hello, everyone from my side as well. My name is Anze Kos, and everyone calls me AK. My initials are AK, and yeah, I just go by AK. Um, First off, just want to acknowledge and give my thanks to Aaron for such a powerful story. I spoke to Aaron about a week ago, but we didn't went into much details about his story, and it's great to hear it. I think it was inspiring as far as from my end. I hope you guys thought that too. And there's a lot of connection to what I'm going to talk about today because, when we connected about a week ago, there was some topics we discussed, and we had a lot of similar views with Aaron. So, with that being said, to build on top of that, um, I'd like to share my own story that I feel like suits in perfectly with what our team is today. And so picture this. I was playing professionally. So I was playing professional basketball about about 4 or 5 years ago. It was my like third or fourth season. I signed with a team from Austria. So those of you who know me, I've been playing professional basketball for about 7 years now, and just recently retired. So yeah, but this was a story from while I was still playing. So, and for you guys to understand this a little bit better, when you sign a professional basketball contract in a foreign country as a foreigner, you're expected to be one of the leaders, right? You come in to the team as one of the foreigners, and you are always expected to perform well. You are expected to lead the team on and off the court. And pretty much when things are going well, when the team is winning, everything is okay. When things are not going well and the team is losing, it's always your fault. So that is just the reality, the harsh reality of the professional world, and especially in basketball. So anyways, back to the story. When I was playing in Austria, right, like the preseason, everything seems to be going pretty smoothly. Yes, I had some, I guess, tension between me and my coach because there was definitely a different view on basketball and on life itself. So there was some tension in the preseason, but nothing major. But the thing is, when the season started, right? Me coming in, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to be in this position, this leadership position, lead the team. And in practices, from my end, I thought I was doing so. But then when the season started, all of a sudden I was benched, right? So again, like you come in as one of the foreigners, you are one of the best paid players on the team, and you obviously with that comes a big responsibility to lead the team. And then all of a sudden something the coach didn't communicate with me, and I was benched. You know, and there was one game, there was 2 games, there was 3 games, and I barely got to play. And then even the players who were like 18, 19-year-olds who were not even on the contract got to play more than myself. And I was just kind of like, what the hell is going on? Like, it just didn't make sense, right? And the long story short, after about 4 or 5 games, the tension between me and this coach started like kind of just going off the roof, to be honest, like just rising. And every day, every practice, we just kept getting into more disagreements. We were just arguing constantly. And it came to that point where I was so frustrated that I literally, one practice, I still remember this vividly. I took a ball, like he said something to me, I don't know, I think he was cursing at me or just telling me how bad I'm doing something. Anyways, like my film popped, and I was like, I took a basketball and I literally threw it at his head. I was so frustrated, and that basketball didn't hit his head, but it went just like by him. But I was actually aiming for his head, and he sent me home or something. I don't really remember what happened exactly afterwards because I was just so angry and so much in that um, under that adrenaline, I guess, as well. Um, you know, and I still remember I came back home after that practice, and I was so down. Like I was like in a state of depression. It was like I remember still in the upcoming days we had this big event with the team to celebrate one of the teammates' birthday, and even my best friend, who was my roommate at the time, invited me to go. And of course, when something like this happened, like a team bonding, everyone's supposed to show up. But I was so down, like it, and this was like a week afterwards. I was so down, I was so frustrated, angry, that I was still holding that resentment against what that coach did to me, and all these negative words he was saying to me, and all this belittling and everything, that I was just like, I just couldn't go. I still remember. And at that point there was a decision. I was either going to stay or I was going to leave. There was nothing else, right? And I made a decision. You know what? I'm going to stay and deal with the situation. And the first thing I did, went on Google, and I was like, okay, there's some type of shift that needs to happen. I need to, make a shift in my mind. That's what I was thinking at the time. And I was like, I Google mindset program for basketball players. And the first thing came up was this online program by Taylor Allen. Taylor Allen is one of the well-known coaches in Canada. He also worked with NBA players, and I bought his program, started doing his program, and within the first week, the change of perspective and the shift of energy that happened just by being surrounded by his presence. Even it was like an online program, but it was everything, it was in like a video format, and just the heart I felt from this guy. It was just like, in the first week, immediately, like, shift started happening. And long story short, I started doing exercises, I started changing my morning routine, my evening routine, I started dealing with my emotions, I started working on my traumas, my anger issues, all kinds of stuff. It was just like one step at a time. It was just like things started truly transforming for me. It was really transformational time. So pretty much, if I look back now, what I did was, one of the main things that truly changed was, I opened my heart, I started accepting of what is, and I started being very compassionate. I started, looking at the perspective of this situation that I am, with a different perspective, right? It was, at first, it was all this negativity, and I was resisting everything, and then all of a sudden I was like, you know what? I gotta flip this thing around. So I opened my heart. I started being much more understanding, and just seeing the whole situation and coach from a different angle. And what this did to me, first of all, I started entering the state of flow, right? And all of a sudden, when I was like at practice, things just started shifting. I was playing much better. Our relationship with the coach was starting to improve. And by the middle of the season, that was maybe like 3-4 games in, after I started doing this program, I was a sixth man. So that means, for those of you that don't know, it's like the first person that comes off the bench, right? And by the end of the season, I was in the starting five. And when the season was over, which was, super mind blowing, coach calls me and asks me, do you want to play for me again the next year? And that to me uh, was just like, what the, I didn't like, it was just so mind blowing, because everyone that know our situation, we were like cat and a dog, constantly fighting. And it was like, sometimes the things we said to each other, it was crazy. And then all of a sudden, in the summer, I still remember the call. He calls me. His name is I have him saying in my contact as coach. So he calls me, I pick up, I'm like, hello. And and he was like, why are you surprised that I called? Well, I don't know, I didn't expect a call from you. And then he tells me, I have this new team, would you like to play for me? And this was just like super crazy to me, right? With me just flipping that switch, opening the heart, applying that practice of acceptance, a magic pill of compassion to the situation, and being much more understanding of what is going on, and of the coach himself, just kind of allowing the energy to flow through me because I opened my heart. All of a sudden, not that we were like best friends, but our relationship changed completely, right? Um, so why I'm describing this story and why I feel like it's such a perfect, so perfect for today's topic is because, number one, I had a coach, right, from this professional team who was very negative. He was always yelling at me. That's how I saw the situation at the time. He was always triggering me. He kept cursing at me. He kept belittling me at me. He was so pessimistic with everything, and I felt like I was completely opposite, and he was like kind of, in a way, I felt like he was abusing his power to have this like dominance over me, which triggered me so much, and then all of a sudden there's this other guy who I meet, Taylor and Allen, right, whose program I've done, who's just this very deep, positive, transformational coach, has a super high level of experience, just amazing, powerful energy, very deep, heart-based servant leadership. You can feel that. And there's like these two different type of, I guess, leaders, or we can, on one hand, we say this other person is a super positive. It fits perfectly in that circle of super positive role model, and the other doesn't, right? But what I'm trying to say here, it was because of the first person that I was seeking the other one, right? So the first person was actually the main reason for me to change. If it wasn't for the first person, I wouldn't have met Taylor Allen, and later on become friends with him, right? So the first coach was actually the main reason that I changed. It was because of him, because he showed me all the triggers. He showed me I have to face my emotions, that sometimes I'm smiling, and I'm actually super angry inside, that I was being fake and everything. So thanks to that coach, I'm so grateful for him, because he was the one, and because of him, I met this other coach who fits this positive role model, right? So I guess my message here is similar along the lines what Aaron said, you know, um, in my own words, to embrace both, because negative and positive, right? They can both change your life for the better. We often think, okay, I have to, yes, it's true. It's important to surround yourself with positive people and uplifting individuals. But for example, in my scenario, I wouldn't have ever done that if it wasn't for that first coach. Okay. So what I'm saying is, again, not to advocate for surrounding yourself with negative people, although maybe sometimes, but the main thing is to truly instead learn from them, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all about perspective. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron and AK. You guys just took it to the next level, by really speaking to the opposite side too, because we're always thinking, positive male role models, right? Positive mentors, those are who we want to surround ourselves with, but life has other plans for us. So sometimes we have coaches that are tough love. Sometimes those people that are the hardest on you, they do that because they know you're up for the challenge and can take that, and you're coachable and you're going to go places. So there's something to be said for that. Aaron spoke to how He, through his experience, he realized how he didn't want to show up, how he didn't want to be. And so that also was a driving force. And I really wanted to speak to the emotion of anger, because a lot of times we're always wanting to do what society says, which says to take the higher road. Don't be angry, and don't want to react. You want to respond. However, behind closed doors, you can get angry, and you can still be angry with an individual, but you're going to look at the timing and how you convey the anger, so that way you're being respectful even when you say that you're angry with a person. And so those, to me, are things that I am so thankful that you two touched upon that. It brought back a little bit of a time for me where I needed to receive some feedback. And because the person in my life at that time only wanted the best for me in a professional way, and they had to share something difficult for me, and I took it all in. And even though it was a little hard to hear, I practiced what I was asked to do. And I'll be vulnerable. I tend to get all excited and ramped up, and I will talk over people. It's only because I'm trying to connect. It has nothing to do with trying to overpower the conversation or diminish the message. But I used to do that. I still do it sometimes because, I'm a work in progress like everyone else. But because he was in that space for being like a mentor to me and wanting my best, I could take in that hard stuff. And it was the catalyst too that I wanted to change. And what's really nice is when a mentor or someone that wants the best for you can put that out there for you, and then you can have that safe space to go try it, which is what I did. They noticed that I made a new effort, a new way to be. And I found something. I went into a space and listened more and said less. I let someone finish their thought and really come to the full circle. And, not only did I win the respect of my mentor at the time, but I also had the respect of the person or people on the floor expressing and sharing ideas, because I like to be a fixer. I like to swoop in and fix it. I like to plug up the hole in the wall that's leaking the water. That's me. That's just how I've always been. But there's a time and a place where, all of us, we all need to take in what people have to share with us. So with that, I don't want to take all of the time, because I know that some of you have some questions for AK and Aaron. So if you'd like to ask them some questions, we're in that time of our program now. Go ahead and come off of mute, or you can raise your hand and I can call on you.
Uh,
Go ahead.
I just want to say thank you, Aaron and AJ, for the stories. I see some similarities in everything that y'all was sharing. So and it was definitely positive. You took what was a negative situation and made it positive. A lot of us go through life and feel as though, like you said, everything is negative, everything, but the negative makes you learn what not to do in order in that situation. So it could give you a positive impact in life. And a lot of us just take everything like negative, but it's not always negative. Everything in life is a learning experience, and we're all human. We all go through the same similarities, but in different ways. So I really was inspired by each of the stories that you both shared, and thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I think I'd like to chime in as well. By the way, Aaron, thank you for your vulnerability and your topic of choice. It's something very brave to discuss, and it needs to be discussed. And I'm glad we're open to discussion here of such a topic in this forum. And then AK, let's go with that because I can't figure out how to pronounce your name. But yeah, you know what? I agree with you. It's those negative influences that lead us to recognizing the fact that there is a better way, there is more positivity. I actually didn't realize I myself was being a negative influence for my kids. It was actually when my son was around 17 that I realized I was a bad influence. And I needed to change my ways. I just thought of it as tough love, right? Just, just trying to push them in the right direction. But I wasn't connecting with them in the right way, and I had to change my ways. And that allowed me to build that bond again back because I was in a place where I was losing them because I was affecting them in a negative way. I was losing my kids. So, thank God I was able to recognize the influence I was having on them. That allowed me to become a better person for them. Who knows what this person, this coach you're talking about, what kind of person they are today, whether they recognize that they're, a negative influence or not. But that again, we have to recognize the negative in order to appreciate the positive or search out the positive.
So RJ, you mentioned that you were able to connect better. So I'm curious, what did you do that enabled you to connect better after having that awareness of the negative part?
Well, like you said, you know what? I was coming from an angry place, right? I thought it was more about me than it was about them, right? It was about my feelings, how I was reacting to what they were doing or what they were saying, how I thought of them. Whereas it should have been, how do they see it? What do they want? What are they looking for? Through that, I was able to, show up as a better person. Of course, I was in a bad way because I was angry. I was frustrated. I was, peeved off the world. I sought counseling. That is the one catalyst that makes me a better person today. But it was through recognizing the position I was in and the person I was that allowed me to, start to think about them, start to look at their perspective. And we don't as people. We're selfish beings at heart. But if we start looking at those people we interact with, how do they see it? What are they looking for? How can we best serve them? Like Aaron said, it's about service to the people we're dealing with. We look at for their perspective, we're able to serve them in a better way.
If I could say something, since there are no questions right now, it's just it all reminds me of the parable of two sons who grew up with a drunken father. One son grew up being a drunk just like his father. The other son stayed abstinent from alcohol and drugs and went on to live a better life. And when both were asked, why are you living the path that you're on? They both answered, because my father was a drunk. One realized that just because this is the path that my father set for me, that's not the path I have to live. And one realized because I am in this rut, because I am in this hole, then this is the life that's given to me. This is what I am susceptible to. That's not always the case. We all have choices in life, and it's what I like to call choosing your heart. For example, if you're overweight, yes, it's hard to exercise. It's hard to get out and do things that are going to make your body physically and mentally better at the moment. But think about it, in 20, 30 years, it's going to be harder for you to live with those consequences of your lifestyle now, with the diabetes, with the overweight. So it's basically just choosing your heart. Are you going to basically live the life uh, of hardness now, or are you going to deal with it later? We all have to pay the price. And so, it's as cliche as it is, nothing in this life comes easy. We all have to put in the work. As I mentioned, for over 17 years, I lived in shame that what has happened to me. And I finally decided, well, my body did after Amber's breakdown, to seek that help. And what I like to tell people is that every single day I take that first step towards recovery. It's like RJ said, it's hard to look at ourselves and make that change. I mean, we all can look in that proverbial mirror and say, yes, I need to make that change. I need to lose that weight. I need to be a better person. I need to be a better spouse. I need to be a better father. But taking that first step is the hardest thing, because we as adults, we are stubborn in our ways. We don't like change. We love the status quo because it doesn't require that hard work. But if we want to make life better for us in the future, we have to put in that work now. It's going to hurt physically and emotionally, but eventually we're going to be on a path where we're happy with ourselves, where our family and our friends are like, you know what, this is the person that I want to emulate, that I want to be like, simply because they put in the work. But you have to always remember, you have to take that first step, whether it's towards recovery, whether it's towards being a better person. And the next day, it doesn't get any easier. You have to wake up and take that first step again. And that's what it's about, is putting in that hard work.
Well said, Aaron. I noticed that AK had something that he wanted to bring to the discussion. So go ahead.
Yes, just responding to what RJ said, thinking back now, that coach, right? Actually, I go as far as saying there is no bad or negative or positive experiences. There are just experiences, and that coach, like if we do say positive, negative, that coach actually ended up being a positive influence on me because the things he did triggered me so much. Like it put me in such a state that it forced me to deal with my own life. Like he ended up being, I mean, kind of like, I don't know. I don't think he understands to this day. I don't think he's aware, but like literally, he was the reason my whole life changed. He's probably not aware of it. Like if I ask him today, he probably doesn't know that. Maybe one day he will listen to this story, and reach out to me. Wait, that was me? I was like, yup. But like he ended up truly show me what I need to work on. So, those people I feel like sometimes can be truly someone to force you to look at yourself and what you need to work on. Right. So yeah, he was definitely that for me, and for that I will forever be grateful to him.